again, my little yarnivores and spiderettes and arachnids. Fiber Spider back again with another tutorial just for you. Today we're going to be doing a really easy knitted project. It works up fast and I think you guys are going to love this. It is a short row knitted hat. Yep. And this one is different than some of the others I've done previously. This one, instead of going from the top down or the bottom up, this one is worked side to side. And it's absolutely genius how it's worked up. Basically, you work back and forth, utilizing short rows to create a curvature of shaping at the top with these wedges. Yep. Really simple to do. And so this was the first one that I made up. And this is Lion Brand's Pound of Love. And then this next one that I worked up, this one I believe was Loops and Threads Impeccable, and I love how the colorway did its thing. Now, like I said, this is a flat knitted piece, so you can use straight needles. I'm going to be using circulars though. And then it is seamed together, and for a visual aid, I have one here that I did all of the knitting. I just haven't finished it up yet, but I think this will give you a better idea as to how it's worked up. So what we're going to be doing is we're creating sort of these wedges here. So we've got 1, we've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 of these wedges. So with the short rows, it creates an angle. And don't worry, I will go into explaining how it actually works. But you can see the angles here. That's where the short rows come into place. The other really nice thing about this design is that it is very customizable. If you want to make it smaller, bigger, really whatever, it's easy to do. So all of these stitches, that is actually the cast-on stitches. And you make as many of these wedges as you need for the shaping of your hat. So then when you fold this in half and then seam it along up one side, you end up with a really gorgeous hat. This actually was Red Heart Super Saver in, I think it was the colorway of Autumn. I think it's gorgeous, don't you? And with that being said, I think let's get started, shall we? Okay. Okie dokie, so we have the setup here. Now, I'm using the same yarn that I had before. This is the Red Heart Super Saver. It's a weight of 4, so I am using a size 10 knitting needle. You can, of course, use whatever works for you, but I'm just letting you know what I'm using in case if you want to try to duplicate the results. So here I have a total of 36 stitches cast on, and this makes for a nice sized adult hat. You can, of course, change the number of stitches. That's totally up to you. Also, I cast on using a knitted cast on, which I think works very, very nicely for this particular project. I'm going to put a link to the knitted cast on in the description box down below, if you don't know that already. It is a fabulous cast on. Can't recommend it enough. And then I did 1 row already, just knit across. And also another thing that you are going to need for this project, some stitch markers. You are going to need 8 of these little guys. They aren't entirely essential, but they will really, really help you in the long run. And I will show you their usage later. So want you to cast on 36 stitches, knit the first row, and then we shall get started in with the actual short row shaping. Okay, so get this started and I will see you shortly. Alrighty, so after doing your knitted cast on and a row of just knit stitches, we have ourselves starting off on the second row, which is where we're going to be starting in on the short rows. And it's a lot easier than you might think. So what we have to do is we have to get to the other end, which means a lot of knitting. And the other great thing about doing the short rows like this using the garter stitch is that it creates a very stretchy, squooshy texture for the hat. So because of the extra stretch, it is very, very comfortable to wear. So we're going to be just knitting, knitting, knitting our way across until we reach the very end. And so I'm going to skip ahead until I'm almost at the end of the row, and I'm going to show you where the magic really starts to happen. Okay, so I'm just going to knit my way across. I will be right back, and I will see you there. Okay, so I'm still on row 2. I'm almost at the end of the row, and knit until just before the last stitch of the row. And then we're going to do what is referred to as a wrap and turn. So that's the second to last. All right, so that we've got one last stitch on our left needle. So to do the wrap and turn, there are a lot of different ways of doing this, let me tell you, but this is what I found works best for me. So this last stitch, we're not going to knit that stitch. No, what we're going to do is we're going to do a wrap and turn. So at this point, take your working yarn, bring it to the front, then slip the stitch onto the right needle. Then we're going to wrap the yarn around that stitch to the back, like so, just around the back. Then slip the stitch that we slipped back onto the left needle, and then bring the yarn from the back to the front, like so. So we wrapped the stitch, and you can see it quite clearly because it's a contrasting color at this point. So then take one of your markers, pop it onto your left needle. Then at this point, we're going to turn our work and knit our way back to the beginning. So careful that you don't drop your marker or your stitch. And then for row 3, just knit your way back across. Now, this point right here, this is where the shaping of the short rows comes into play. At the end of this row, where we started from, that is going to be the brim of the hat. Give you an idea of which end is up and which end is down, figuratively speaking. So I'm going to knit my way all the way back to the beginning where we started from. And then we're going to do this again and again and again for a total of 8 markers worth. And then after that, I know I'm jumping the gun here. I realize that. And then going to show you how to pick up those wraps and utilize them so that we don't end up with a lot of holes in the top of our hat. And basically it's sort of, wash, rinse, repeat for as many times as you need, because what we're doing is creating one wedge. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to knit all the way to the beginning here, and then row 4 is going to be knitting back towards our marker here so that we can create a new wrap and turn stitch. So I'm going to meet back up with you when I'm about up to here again. I'm basically just going like a typewriter, going back and then forth. So I'm going to meet back up with you around here for row 4, and I will see you shortly. Okay, so I'm currently working on row 4, which I'm almost done with. What I did was, after leaving our marker from before, I knit all the way back to the brim here. I didn't do anything funky over here. No, just all knit stitches, and then knit all my way back to here for row 4. And I am almost at the point where we need to do our next wrap and turn. Now you can already see that since this stitch was not worked, that it's already starting to angle just a little bit. Well, we're going to make that a bit more pronounced. We are going to knit up until the marker, and this is going to be our new wrap and turn stitch. So I just need to knit the next 4 stitches. We will do our wrap and turn, and like I said, lather, rinse, repeat kind of thing. So knit my way to the stitch before the marker. And one more. Okay, so that's the one stitch before the marker. And then, again, going to bring the yarn to the front, slip that stitch over to the right, wrap the yarn around the stitch to the back, and then slip that stitch back onto the left needle. Bring the yarn back up to the front, like so, and then place your marker on the left needle, and there you go. That's the second wrapped stitch. Then at this point, turn your work. Careful that your marker doesn't fall off. It has happened to me before. That's why I caution you. And then we're just going to knit our way back for row 5, and then for row 6, again, I'm going to meet back up with you to do another wrap and turn. I realize that I'm skipping around a lot, which is not what I usually do, but the majority of the project, it's just knitting, the crux is in the short rows. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to knit my way back across to the brim so that I can finish up row 5, and then row 6, yep, I'm going to work my way up until we are approaching the wrap and turn, and I will go through that once again, and I will see you shortly. All right, I'll see you in a bit. Okay, so I'm almost done with row 6. As I said before, I just knitted my way back and then forward, and we are approaching our wrap and turn stitch. I just need to knit 3 more because it's the one before the marker that we have to do the wrap and turn to. So let's do it to it, shall we? And the beauty of this is, as long as you use your markers, you really don't even have to do any counting. You don't have to keep track of much. And that is part of the beauty of this. So we have 1 stitch left, right? So again, wrap and turn. So bring the yarn to the front, slip the stitch from the left to the right, bring the yarn around to the back, slip the stitch from the right to the left, bring the yarn back to the front, and then place the marker on the left needle. Shaboom. Okay, so that is how the wrap and turn works. So at this point, I'm going to turn my work for row 7, and then row 8 will be my next wrap and turn row. So to save you the redundancy, I like to be thorough, but I don't wish to be redundant. I am going to do the rest of my wrap and turns off camera because it's just really more of the same. And then once I have my 8 wrap and turn stitches there, and they're all good to go, then I'm going to show you how to pick up those wraps and manipulate them so that, like I said, they don't leave holes in the top of your crown there. And then I'm also going to show you how you can finish up your finished piece. So as far as the number of segments or wedges that you'll need, it really depends on your tension, your gauge. If you use a smaller needle size than this one, you may need more of these wedges. I only needed 7. My mom, she has made a bunch of these. She used smaller needles and has a tighter tension, so she needed 8 wedges. So there is some flexibility as far as customization. So, like I said, I'm just going to knit back and forth, doing my wrap and turn, the one right before that marker there, and I'm going to do that until I have a total of 8 markers. Okay, so I will see you when I get there. All right, just keep at it. Rewind, replay if you need to. Timestamps are always in the description box down below. So, that being said, I will see you shortly. Okay. Hello again. All right, this is row 18. I have been following suit with what we have been doing as far as making our wrap and turn stitches. I have a total of 8 here, and we are all set to go for finishing up our first wedge. So, going to work my little way across, and then we shall get to business. So, just going to knit, knit, knit until I reach my markers. And then we will do the picking up of the wraps and knitting them together so that we don't have any holes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to knit my way across, and then when I approach my markers, I will be right back, okay? Okay. Okay, so we are almost to our first marker. Just got 2 more to go. Okie dokie. So first things first, remove the marker. And then we have the wrap. Now you can see, based on the color change of the yarn, that first wrap is the little orange loop that is wrapping around the back of that stitch. So going to lift up the loop, and it is a little bit tight, so gotta fiddle with it a little bit, but then take that loop and then pop that onto the left-hand needle. And there are 2 ways that you can go about knitting those 2 loops together, either through the front or through the back, which I have found is a little bit easier. It does create a different appearance, but I find it's easier. So going through the back of the stitches, going to knit these 2 together. Just go slow, try not to drop your stitches there. And then there we go. So that is the first 2 knitted together. Take the next marker off. It's a little stuck there. Hang on. There we go. So next marker off. And then lift up the next wrap. And pop it onto the left needle there. Going in through the back of those 2 stitches. and knit them together, and so on and so forth until we reach the end of the row. And yes, these stitches are a little bit tight because, well, I have a tendency of stitching fairly tightly. So that's partially my own doing. So as you can see, we don't have any unsightly holes for the crown of our hat. So I'm going to keep doing this until we reach the end of the row. You're stuck with me for the long haul here. So pick up that loop, stretch it a little bit up and over onto that left needle, going in through the back, knit them together, and off. Next marker, pick up the wrap, trying to remain in frame for the shot. I'm sorry. I'm trying here. Okay. And then going in through the back. Knit these two together. And off. There we go. Next marker off. Pick up the wrap. Put it on the left. Going in through the back of this 2 stitches. Trying to get all of the plies here. Yarn's splitting a little difficult, but I'm managing. Just go slow, be patient, and perhaps don't stitch quite so tightly as I do. There we go. But you can see it is working out rather nicely. Just got a couple more to go. Okay, got to grab the wrap. Pop it onto the left. There we go. Going in through the back of the loops. There we go. Knit them together. And off. Get rid of the next marker. Pick up the next wrap. Pop it onto the left. Knit these 2 together. There we go. And then one more, the very last. And this one's very easy to see. It's this orangish loop right here. Scooch that one onto the left needle. Going in through the back. And knit these 2 together. There we go. Ha-ha! Success. It is a beautiful, wondrous thing. And as you can see, we have no unsightly holes from doing our wrapped stitches because we tightened things up and knitted those wraps together with our stitches. Now, this right here, this is one complete wedge. Now, based on the size of the hat that you are going for, you may need to do 7, 8, however many. And it's just a matter of repeating the wedge as many times as it takes. So from here, I would knit all the way back to the brim, and then would be starting over, knitting to the last stitch, wrap this stitch, go back, wrap this stitch, go back, etc., 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 until you have 8 wrapped stitches. When you have 8 of these markers, you then do the wrap and turn method once again. The picking up of the wraps method once again to finish up your wedge. And then when you have 7, 8, however many of these wedges that you need, you can then bind off. Now, if you want to make another wedge, all you have to do is just knit back, knit this way, and then wrap and turn this last stitch here. If, however, you've done all of your wedges, at this point, you would bind off from here after doing your pickup row. So I like to do the stretchy bind off, which I'm going to put a link in the description box down below on how to do that. But you know what? I think let's do it together, shall we? Let's do that together. Okay, I've skipped around so much in this video, I felt that I should show you at least how to do the more stretchy bind off. So to do that, knit the first 2 stitches. Oh, got my yarn wrapped around my needle in the wrong spot. There we go. So yeah, knit the first 2 stitches. So just imagine that I've already created 7 wedges. That was just the first, but this is, visual aid time. All right, so knit those 2 stitches. Then with your left needle, go in through the front of those 2 stitches and knit those 2 together. Knit the next stitch. And with the left needle, go in through the front of those 2 stitches and knit them together. There you go. And then just do this all the way until you have reached the last stitch. Knit those 2 together, and that is your bind off. It's really that easy. And then we get the fun part of showing you how to do the final stitching by hand for sewing this up, which is really, really simple, actually. And I believe, yes, I caught apply there. Let me undo that. That's okay. And then going through the front of these. There we go. I accidentally caught a strand of another ply of another loop, but that's okay. This is, like I said, for demonstration purposes. And there you go. So you have a nice stretchy edge, which is really a good thing for this particular bind off because you don't want either edge to be particularly rigid. The knitted cast on and the stretchy bind off work very, very nicely together. So that's how you do the bind off. And then before you cut your yarn, when you're done binding off, make sure you leave a nice long tail so that you can do the seam without any trouble. That way you don't need to use even more yarn. All right, so I'm going to finish this up and then I'm going to show you how to do the final seam. All right, see you in a bit. Alrighty, so this is the piece that I showed previously that has the 7 wedges all ready to go. So at this point, going to fold the piece in half, and I already have my yarn threaded with a yarn needle here, and we are going to stitch this closed. It's really, really quite simple, actually. So first things first, you can see that we have on this edge these 2 loops for each stitch as we go all the way up the top. And then over here, on the other side, we also have 2 loops that we can go underneath. I like to go underneath all 4. That is just me personally. There are, I'm sure as you know, a million ways of sewing pieces together. This is my preferred method. If you have another one that you prefer, well, go for it. So I go underneath both loops and then underneath both loops, pull through, and I'm going to be doing a basic whip stitch. Now, because this is the very bottom, I'm going to go underneath a second time just to reinforce the bottom edge. And you don't want to pull it too tight because then it'll pucker and it'll stand out even more so. Okay, so that is the first one done. And then moving on to the next and the next 2 loops. So I went into there, got to go into here now. And we're just working our way up the side. And then into the next 2 loops. And into the next 2. Getting there. No, that's the one I just went in. There we go. Can be a little tricky to see when it's the same colors that you're working with. When it's contrasting, it's a lot easier. And in the next 2, and the next 2, just work your way up and stitch it closed. So I'm going to do this until I reach the top, and then going to do a little bit of a drawstring method to help cinch it up a bit. You know, it's not so very pronounced compared to other models that I've done, but it works. Okay. So I'm going to work my way all the way up until I reach the top, and we will finish up this top opening together. Okay? I'll see you in a bit. All right, so I just have a few more seam stitches to do, and then we can go over the very, very tippy top of our piece. There we are. Okay, so at this point, because of the way that the short row wedges are created, it does actually create a bit of a hole in the center. This, if you are of a mind to, this would be an ideal opportunity to also add a pom-pom. However, pom-poms are not always my thing. So, that being said, to cinch this up, what I like to do is sort of reinforce what we just did right there. And then running my yarn through some of the stitches along the top edge, this opening here. Not too tight at first. We'll get there. Just the little nubs at the top here. There we go. And a bunch more. back through where we started. And then cinch. Pull that nice and taut. And then for good measure, I like to go underneath some of those stitches again to reinforce what we did. And it doesn't have to be particularly neat or fastidious because we are going to be turning this inside out after we're done here. There we go. And then can add a knot or 2 or 3, whatever. Come on. There we go. Okie dokie. And then you can snip off your yarn, and then this end down here, I like to weave it in just a little bit before snipping it off. So for this end, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run it through some of my stitches here. This is how I finish most of my ends when it comes to garter stitch. Just run it up and down through those loops. Make sure that it's nice and secure and not going to go anywhere. Okie doke. Then I can cut my ends, turn the hat right side out, and there you go. A thing of beauty. I absolutely love how this turned out. Now, as far as the seam, it's right here. Now, considering the fairly busy colorway, it blends in pretty well. You know, I mean, texturally, it's a little bit different, but I think it looks really, really quite nice. Yeah. So, there you go. The short row knitted hat. Okie dokie, my dears. So, that's going to conclude today's tutorial on how to make a knitted short row hat. Really, really fun, very quick, very easy, and, well, there you go. So, as always, I hope that you liked it, and if you did, please give a little thumbs up button down below. You know that I appreciate your appreciation. And you know what to do until next time, right? I want all of you to stay inspired, stay caffeinated, stay stitching, and please stay safe. Take care of yourselves and each other, and in the comments section, I want to hear from you. Let me know what you are going to do with this particular design. What sort of yarn? What sort of colors? Always interested in hearing from you and about your creative journey. And until next time, you have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.